Yeah, that powerhouse stage presence belongs to a young man who will show you what determination is all about. Those of us with good hearing would agree that we probably take it for granted, right? Well, Linda is introducing us tonight to a young man who doesn't take the small amount of hearing he has left for granted, but it has changed the route he's taking to reach some big goals in his life. Linda?
Well, Tom, plenty of people in the fort might recognize 21-year-old Gavin Drew from local theater stages. If you know him, you know he wants to end up on Broadway. And he's not going to let complete hearing loss in his right ear and 95% loss in his left keep him from his second act.
I have so many dreams I need to see for so many years.
The theater bug bit Gavin Drew early growing up in Arkansas.
I loved The Wizard of Oz, wore out my VHS tape, and my mom saw a flyer at my preschool and noticed that they were looking for kids for The Wizard of Oz, and I was below the age cutoff, actually.
You were 5?
And I was 5, and they actually allowed me to do it, and I was the mayor of Munchkinland, and I never looked back.
Never looked back. The only child who surrounded himself with puppets as friends and taught himself ventriloquism continued in youth theater after a move to Wisconsin and ended up in Wells County, Indiana, acting and singing at Norwell High School, the Wells Community Theater, Fort Wayne Youth Theater, and the Fort Wayne Civic Theater.
Hello! That's the good. England.
My favorite role was Igor in Young Frankenstein at the Fort Wayne Civic Theater. Yeah. It was just a hilarious role, a great show. Mel Brooks is my favorite.
His most challenging?
Principal photography by Barbara Streisand. I know. How did she get her?
I think my most challenging role was probably buyer and seller. I did that out at Wells Community Theater for Creative Arts, and it's a one-man play. And it's 90 minutes of just you on stage. Spinning a story about all the characters in your life while you're working in Barbara Streisand's basement.
These days, he's rehearsing with the cast of You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown with the Summit City Music Theater, the company's second production in its 1.5-year existence. Gavin's talent and support from family, friends, and teachers helped him get into the prestigious theater program at Oklahoma City University a few years ago, a college that's produced Broadway superstars like Kristen Chenoweth and Kelly O'Hara. Gavin made up his mind he wanted to carve out a path to Broadway, too. And he was on his way, but he had a secret of sorts. He'd begun to lose his hearing in high school, and it grew worse in college. He had to leave the program he loved so much after suspecting he had Meniere's disease.
Meniere's disease usually takes your hearing over a long amount of time. So we weren't really worried about it. I wore a hearing aid. I didn't tell anyone. I kind of just resumed life as normal.
He says he didn't tell anyone because he didn't think it mattered. It wasn't going to hold him back. But Gavin was honest with me about the feelings he had when he realized he'd lost nearly all of his hearing.
It was definitely devastating. Yeah, I thought it was over. I thought all of this was over. You know, and I always knew exactly what I wanted to do with my life from the age of 5. So to then suddenly be in a position where something we rely on so much, just to hear our cues, to hear our music entrances, to be taken from you was really scary.
But that was the way he knew how to make things work on stage.
Now I knew a new way, and all it was learning a new way, which I was more than willing to do.
Wow.
You're a good man, Charlie Brown.
There we go.
I have always expected nothing but big things from Gavin Drew.
Gavin's high school voice teacher is one of his biggest fans and works closely with him to help him adjust to his new normal, this time starring as Snoopy.
He has had to start learning to sing by sensation instead of by sound. He now has a better feeling of where sound feels like in his body, what certain pitches do. He memorizes pitches instead of just hearing it on the piano and singing it back. And for this show, he's really doing quite well.
Pretty sky, not bad. Not bad.
I do have to cue him on a couple of things just to make sure that we're in the right spot.
And Gavin's partner in crime, Snoopy's Charlie Brown in this production, is impressed.
We definitely have to establish a chemistry, but it's been really easy with him. He's great. I've never worked with him on a show before, but I've seen him on stage a lot, and he's always just been fantastic. So when I heard that he was going to be playing Snoopy, I was like, oh, cool, I get to work with Gavin.
Cox and her co-founder of the Summit City Music Theater, Christopher Spalding, handpicked this group, excited to bring Gavin back to the local stage.
This opportunity just seemed like the perfect way to bring him home and let him strut his stuff on stage again.
He's also impressed with Gavin as a young performer.
I've been in the entertainment industry for a very long time, both in theater and dance, and what I've found over the years is there are a lot of people who are very talented. You have a lot of people with a lot of talent, and you have some people who have an incredible work ethic, but it's very seldom to find someone who truly has both. He's just sheer joy on stage.
Lights come up with the music.
Gavin is living in Fort Wayne just for this show. At one time, he wanted to live in New York City and be on stage every night and make it to Broadway one day. Have your goals and your dreams changed?
Not at all. Not at all.
He says he knows he's not the first deaf actor. It's the same goal and the same finish line.
I think it's just a different route.
You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown is this weekend and next at the Fort Wayne Ballroom Company on DuPont Road. Ticket info will be on our website and our Facebook page. And performances include, by the way, one for people who have sensory sensitivities and one for the deaf community. In fact, Tom, the shadow interpreters that you saw in the story, they're there for the entire performance. They're a big part of what goes on stage. And Gavin, by the way, is having a cochlear implant performed later this month, and he tells me it won't necessarily help with music, but it should help him in his everyday life.
You know, I've seen a lot of shows.
Yeah, I know you have. Big
and
fan.
I think that you can almost instantly tell when someone has that Broadway quality voice. He's got it.
He does, and I am one of his biggest fans.
Yeah, it's going to be quite a show.
He's touched my heart very much,
I can
and
tell.
the entire troupe is just amazing.
Yeah.
So
very nice to see.